and good afternoon, everybody out there. This is Troy Warren with Veterans in Politics. I'm sitting in today for Steve Sanson and Jim Jonas, who are over at Rhythm Kitchen doing the endorsement interviews for all of the non-judicial, for all the rest of the seats that are up for grabs this year in the state of Nevada. And I'm hoping we have our other co-host show up. We had a little rainstorm today, and I kind of threw everybody into a tizzy. I didn't even think I was going to get here on time. Quite the thing. So if you're out and about and running around, please be careful this afternoon. There's a severe flash flood warning in effect right now, so you might want to take care of that. On today's show, we're going to be talking with Larry Brown, who's Clark County Commissioner, District C, Victor Wakefield, member, State Board of Education, District 1, and sitting next to me right now, we have Gia Rose Massa. Is that how you pronounce that? Yes. With Paws on the Patio. And we're going to be having a conversation with her. First, though, I think there needs to be a little bit of a... I don't even know how to say this. Is it just me, or is both sides of the ticket, the Republicans and the Democrats, getting dumber and dumber and dumber? It'd be nice if we could just run a campaign and quit the smear stuff. It gets old and it gets tiring. And the fraud and stuff that's coming out, it's almost like we need to go back to the paper ballots with the Chad and the punch. Because with the electronic stuff, it just seems like it can be manipulated way too much, and there's too much stuff out there saying that, you know, so-and-so is hacked in, and the GOP's doing this, and the Democrats are doing that. You know, somebody has to say stop, and I wish somebody at that level would take responsibility and jump in and stop this. I really wish that would happen. And if anybody's listening and knows somebody, you know, one of the reasons why I'm running for office is because I'm tired. I'm just an American. I'm tired of the stuff, and something has to change. And if you've got an opinion on it, please speak up. There's plenty of places out there where you can do it today. So now, I guess we have a conversation with Gia. Paws on the Patio, correct?
Yes, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So, first of all, just give us a little bio on yourself and tell the listeners about what you do.
Well, my name is Gia Rose Massa, and what I'd like to say I do is nonprofit marketing, small business marketing, pet marketing, and things of that nature. Okay, and to what end? So like the Paws on the Patio. So tell us a little bit about Paws on the Patio. Paws on the Patio is a once-a-month event where everybody gets together with their dogs, cats, people. It's a good socializing event where you can just meet new people, honestly. I mean, while benefiting local animal organizations. It's a way to get together and, you know, benefit, but have a good time. Okay, so benefit... local animal organizations here in Las Vegas. Like specifically? I mean, like the Humane Society, what? I haven't worked with them yet. This month I'm working with Pets for Vets. Pets for Vets? Oh, that's a very good thing to be doing, because I know mainly canine for that, right? Dogs for vets. Is that what you're talking about, or do they do cats too, felines? They do. Do they? And different dog breeds. Okay. So, and then specifically, what does that help with, the veterans? For our listeners that don't know, what is the correlation between the animal and the vet? What does it do for each of them? Well, companionship. Okay. I'd say there's also, because all of these animals, they go through obedience training and things like that. I mean, if you are a vet and you might be handicapped or need a little help, you've all seen that commercial where it's like, I fall and I can't get up. I mean, these animals are trained to help you, and in case there's a situation, they can save your life and be your best friend. Wow. So where do you hold these events? And are they fundraisers? They're all over. We move venues each month. all over the Las Vegas Valley.
So I saw an article the other day that Vegas was second only to San Francisco as a animal friendly, or actually dog friendly city. Did you read that article?
I did not, but I wouldn't agree. I mean, Vegas, we're getting more pet friendly, but there are other states that just, they will die for their animals. I mean, I personally would here, and I know a lot of people would, but there's other states where they're just so much more animal friendly, and I hope that Vegas can, start loving more. Loving more.
So there are more and more restaurants that allow pets in? I mean, you say you have these venues. Do you have them at
inside,
bars?
Not inside.
But that's what I'm asking. I mean, where do you hold these events such that you can bring your animals? Because I'm sure you have food and drink, and because it is a fundraiser, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, where have you had it in the past?
The first place that Paws in the Patio was, it was a sushi restaurant, Jenga, Steak and Sushi.
Okay.
We've been at Michoacan, Mexican gourmet restaurant in Centennial Hills. We've been to Bentley's Bar, that's Sunset Road, East Sunset. We've been to No Regrets Bar. We've been to Burrito Tuscan Grill. And where else have we been? I think that's it so far.
Okay. So they've been pretty successful?
Oh, nope. Crave Restaurant in downtown Summerlin.
Okay, so see, that's what I said. We have restaurants and bars. So do they have like an outside patio where you have this event so they can bring their animals in?
They do have an outside patio.
Okay, because, well, then let me ask the question then. At these events, we can bring our animals?
Yes.
Okay. And is it just dogs and cats, or... Steve wanted me to ask that question. Or do you like birds? Can you bring reptiles?
Well, if he comes, then he's a whole different animal. I don't know what you'd say about him. But no, we've had, snakes, birds, ferrets, hamsters, cats, dogs.
Okay. Well, because it is Paws on the Patio, so I just wanted... Steve wanted to make the difference.
Warthogs this month, too. We're working, or trying to. I've spoken with a different organization here that also benefits our vets. And they have warthogs and critters and things like that, so...
Wow. That sounds like fun. So if somebody wanted to donate or have help out, whether they want to volunteer their time or donate money or anything like that, where can we go to on that?
This month, our benefited organization is petsforvets.com.
Okay. So do they donate directly to them, or do you?
Yes.
Okay, so they donate directly to them.
Yes.
Okay. Any organizations that you've helped? Well, so let me ask you this. So let's back up just a little bit, because we've had an issue out in Boulder City. Are you aware of that? Where the person in charge of the animal control was just euthanizing the animals, just as a thing.
The cats?
The cats, dogs, I mean, it was everything. My friend, actually, Anna Nibbett, who worked out there, is actually taking it over. Great woman, very, very conscientious of trying to get, the animals back to their owners. They brought that late. Would you or your organization or any organization that you know of involved in helping make that happen? Because I noticed the Clark County's district attorney just charged the ex-police chief with being some kind of conspirator or something in that. Do you guys help out with that kind of stuff? That kind of animal abuse and things of that nature? Do you bring it to light? Do you go support it? I mean...
Absolutely. Definitely support it. I get really mad and angry, and I definitely support it 100%. I know a lot of people that were involved in helping out. I wasn't able to get down there, but again, it's probably good for me because I have a temper, and I get really upset.
Being an animal lover myself, I wasn't too real thrilled when I heard about that either. So I didn't know if your organization was actually involved in attempting to stop that stuff. So anyways, point of contact for you. Anything you want to go out before we go to break?
You can email me directly, contact Gia Massa, GIAM as in Michael, ASSA @gmail.com, or we have a website, pawsexpo.com, or Facebook, Paws in the Patio Expo.
Okay. So if you want to be involved in Paws on the Patio and support pets, especially this month since it's Pets for Vets, correct?
Yes.
Pets for Vets. Reach out and give Gia a little jingle and see if we can raise some awareness around that. We're going to take a break here for a few minutes, and when we come back, we will have, I'm not sure, I think we're probably going to have Victor Wakefield on. We'll be right back.
Paul Pata Law is a proud sponsor of Veterans and Politics. Attorney Paul Pata, a former federal prosecutor, is ready to fight for you. If you've been injured in a car accident, call Paul. Been a victim of a medical malpractice at the VA? Call Paul. Suffered a slip and fall? You better call Paul. Paul Pata Law, 702-366-1888. That's 702-366-1888. Or check us out on the web at paulpadda.com. That's paulpata.com. You fought for our country, now let us fight for you at Paul Pata Law.
Hi, my name's Annette Levy. Did you know that we usually elect judges based solely on name recognition? So here goes. My name's Annette Levy. My name's Annette Levy. My name's Annette Levy. Now for those of you who might want to know a little more, I have 29 years legal experience, 15 years arbitrator, 11 years judge pro tem. I'm ethical. I'm experienced. I want to be your district court judge in Department 20. And by the way, my name's Annette Levy.
Paid for by the Committee to Elect Annette Levy. If you'd like to know more, visit her website at electannette.com.
Welcome back to Veterans in Politics. My name's Troy Warren. I'm sitting here with Mr. Victor Wakefield, who's State Board of Education, District 1, correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. So do me a favor, give our listeners a little bio about yourself. I mean, your education background, all your stuff, and how you've come and what you're doing now.
Great. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
So I was appointed to the Nevada State Board of Education about a year ago by Governor Sandoval, and I'm serving in the District 1 seat. And so my career, I've been a teacher, so I was a middle school English teacher. I was a teacher recruiter. I've been the state director for a nonprofit that trains and recruits teachers for high-need schools, and I still work for that nonprofit. It's called Teach for America in my professional capacity. I'm now on our national management team, supporting state chapters all over the country. Okay, heard that buzz. So I didn't know if that was. And so I'm excited to talk about the state board work today and for this conversation. And I think that the way I have really internalized my charge as a state board member is there are two things we do. One is what we do all the time as a board, which is setting the policies for the state of, for the state in terms of education. So the assessments, the graduation requirements, the way we evaluate schools and teachers, those are things our board always does. And then in particular, at this moment in time, we as a board are sort of helping to oversee the implementation of all of these legislative reforms and investments that happened in the 2015 session. So that's the legislative session's kind of been known as the education session for Nevada. Lots of changes, lots of investments that have been made, and I think the voters and the legislators are looking for real results from the investments that were made in the hundreds of millions of dollars that have been added to the infrastructure for our schools. And so that's the other thing that our board is doing. So whether it's the supporting our English language learners in the Zoom schools, the teacher incentive grants to better recruit teachers for our school districts, or to grow the colleges of ed programs, these are big investments, and so our board is really making sure that all of these things happen, and they happen well. And so we're take the responsibility really seriously, because our education system needs to improve in Nevada. And so I was appointed by the governor because I have a lot of experience with training and supporting new teachers, and bring a focus to the seat. So,
do you currently teach here in the state of Nevada now?
I don't teach in Nevada now.
Okay.
I work in an education nonprofit capacity, but I was a middle school English teacher in the past.
Okay. You say you were appointed, and yet your seat is up for grabs right now.
It is. Yeah.
Okay, and you're not running. Why?
Well, I put myself up for appointment with a very specific purpose, because I felt like this was such a big moment to begin to move the ball down the field for education. And so I knew that I had a lot of state experience. I've been, was working collaboratively with about 80 of our schools in my professional capacity, so I knew the issues on the ground. I know what our kids, teachers, and parents are facing, and so I thought that I could add a lot of value. And then I also know that there's other people that have sort of also perspective to add, and so I'm really excited to support a candidate that is, I think, going to do a great job, and I'm going to continue to just make the greatest impact that I can. So for me, it was sort of a moment in time where I could add a lot of value, and so that's why I wanted to seek the appointment at the time. So.
Do you hear that, folks? We have somebody who actually wants to make a difference and not become a career politician at it. That is rare. I applaud your efforts on that. However, one of the things I want to get back to is some of the stuff that you talked about, the changes that were made in 2015.
Yeah.
You made a comment about, we're looking for results. Well, I don't know how long you've been in. How long have you been in the state?
So I've been for about 6 years now.
Okay. So we have been looking for results for like the last 20 years.
Yeah.
We've had unbelievable just junk graduation rates. We're graduating kids that aren't even able to make change. Some of the stuff, just crazy stuff that's been going on, and yet nothing seems to change. What, in your opinion, in this last legislative session that, because we had a conversation a little bit before, that is going to make a difference, and why?
Yeah, so I think the thing that is most interesting about the way that the legislature chose to make education investments this last time around is that we didn't change as a state the distributive school account, meaning just the dollars given to districts to spend for education. What they did was they actually made every single set of investments for a specific purpose. So this pool of money is for these set of schools that have the highest percentage of English language learners in the state, right? So you actually have to we can track those investments to those schools exactly.
You mean accountability?
Yeah, so there's...
Really? Accountability?
Yep. So that was the whole give and take, I think, in sort of making these investments. And so it's interesting because I think that as we were talking about before, the real change happens at the school-by-school level, right? So at the end of the day, you want the principal, the administrative team, the teachers, I think with collaboration from the parents to be making the decisions, right? But for some reason, the legislature wasn't willing to give more money to districts without tying it to these specific investments. So it does tell you that folks know that we need to make change, but also we're not believing that what we were doing was working. So that to me is interesting because it means that we're adding hundreds of millions more dollars to the education spending, but only in these very specific places. So there's a set of schools that we can actually follow these investments to. So I think that's an important shift. But it means that it has to work, right? It means that we are, the conversation. So I see our work at the board, as I kind of alluded to earlier, not only as seeing these investments through and also looking at the accountability and making sure that we're measuring if it's working, but also setting up the 2017 legislature to have a good conversation about the next steps here. Because at the end of the day, school is a local affair, right? We need great teachers, we need great principals. Right now we don't have enough. We actually are significantly short from teachers and leaders in our state.
It's an emergency situation here.
It's an emergency, right? And I think so. I was thinking about this before your show and would say that there are I see three big challenges that our state is facing in education, and I think I'll share those with you just to prompt the conversation. So number one, I think, is that we are far short teachers, and we also don't have a strong leadership pipeline. So as you know, probably the principal makes a big difference. The principal is the person in the building that really recruits and keeps and retains great teachers at their school. And so I think both for teachers and leaders, we have to do more to actually grow our own. So to grow the teacher colleges here in Nevada, also invest in alternative route programs that are effective. But we can't every year have the shortage of educators. So I think that is a huge thing. It's a crisis, but it's also something that we could have seen coming and something that we should have planned for. We can't depend on always every year recruiting hundreds of teachers out of state. We need to actually just grow the pipelines here in the state, right? I think the second thing that is a big opportunity is that the demographics have changed a lot for our education system. So we have a much higher percentage of English language learners than we did just 15 years ago, right? Which is not good or bad, it's just something that we need to do. And we need our education system to meet those needs. And we didn't have those needs at the same way 20, 25 years ago. So while we grew, we also grew the number of kids that need that language support. So that matters. And that's something our schools should be able to do, right? That is the kids with incredible potential. The schools should help there. And then I think one other thing that we as a state need to do, and that I would say is the third big opportunity, is we now have decades of low performance in certain schools.
Oh, yes.
Right, and so I think what is interesting right now is that I'm seeing our districts and I'm seeing our state, we're tired of this. And so there are some moves. This is why we're seeing growth in, for instance, charter schools. This is why the district conversation about reorganization is happening. This is why the legislature passed something called the Achievement School District, which would actually take chronically low performing schools out of the district and move them to another subset. And so I think that those are the three things that I see right now is holding our state back.
So explain to me, I don't understand what you mean by taking a low performing school out and put it in a different subset. I don't understand. How does that work? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's a policy that a few states have already implemented, Tennessee, Louisiana, for example. And essentially over time, if a school is on this list of just always chronic low performance, where we are just not graduating enough students, and that we're not, what the state actually does is it pulls out the school from the district and then allows that school to become a charter or organized by, sort of overseen by the state. I don't think that that's a great permanent solution, but I think the bigger point, and I don't have a real opinion on if that works or not, it's such a new idea, but at the end of the day, the thing that I'm excited about is that we're actually seeing collective will as a state to say we're not going to stand for this anymore. We're no longer going to be a state where we just have year after year, you can go to the same zip codes or the same schools, right, that are graduating far too few kids. Kids aren't proficient. And we also have kids that are going to college and need remediation, right? That's not okay either. So those are sort of the issues that I think we have ahead of us.
So some of the things, some of my ideas around education have to deal with Common Core. I'm sure that gets brought up a lot.
Yeah. And our board is the board that helps to look at standards for the state. So that would be
because some of the standards that I think, it seems like we have teachers teaching tests. Mm-hmm. And how does the school board, or is the school board even looking at that? Because personally, I think we need to dump Common Core. What is your opinion on that?
Sure. So we have in Nevada the Nevada Academic Standards, right, mm-hmm. which are part of this, and I think the Common Core phrase is thrown out there a lot. I'm sure you're very knowledgeable about it, but I think a lot of times people...
Well, that's what they know it as.
Yeah. But there's just so much misinformation out there, right? So it's actually something that state by state, states decide what their standards are. The idea, when I moved here in 2010, we had low standards as a state. And so I would hear these stories sometimes of a student or a family moving to California and then finding out, I thought my child was at a 5th grade level and I was told they're at a 4th grade level, actually. That's not okay either. So the idea that I think everybody can agree we should have some sort of standards, right? There should be something that tells us what a 7th grader should know, right? What it takes to graduate, right? Like that's intuitive to people. And I think the Common Core or the Nevada Academic Content Standards, to me, it's not the standard that is as much the problem. It basically just upped the bar a little bit. It's just how we did it. We didn't roll these things out well. We don't have good materials or curriculum that are aligned to them. We are asked teachers to change a lot of the things that they've taught for a long time. And we also, in particular, what's interesting, I think, is that we have a lot of parents, right, who learned one way, and then just because now their child is asked to learn math maybe more conceptually, right, which isn't a bad thing. Like it's great. You better learn math in theory, and and we also don't have the scores to defend our past practices on. Right, Nevada's not been doing well, so the idea of upping the standards itself isn't a bad thing. But I think that the whole, schools, the whole rollout of this thing is, I think, what has caused a lot of challenges. Parents don't understand, the difference between how they were taught something and then how their children might be. Teachers were asked to change a lot of their content overnight, right? So I think those are real problems, and those are things we should change. And so I think school by school, that's where those things need to evolve. What do you think? It sounds like you have a strong opinion on this.
Well, at the end of the day, 32 minus 12 is 20.
Yeah.
It took me about that long to figure it out. If you were to do it the Common Core math way, it takes almost a minute and a half. And, breaking it down into 10s and 20s and however that looks. I don't believe that's helping anything. The other problem I have that I'm seeing is everything is compartmentalized. So we teach math, we teach science, we teach English. However, we have no cross-grooving, so to speak, as to why. Why am I learning math? Why am I learning science? Why? What will that help me become?
Yeah.
Okay, and it's because we have teachers teaching tests because of the way the curriculum. You just explained it well. I mean, it was just thrown out there, and it was never really done in a manner in which it supports anybody. And for example, I had an opportunity, and until the more budget cuts came, I was going to open up the auto shop back at El Dorado High School. I was asked by the principal, as a friend of mine, he says, "Hey, would you do this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." I said, "However, there's going to be some standards that they're going to have to meet." I said, "I'm not going to be an easy A for anybody." He goes, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "They have to take math, always have to take math, have to take science, have to take English, and they have to do well in them." I said, "They also need to, make sure that they're in some kind of PE class because they need to be in shape." And he says, "Okay, so why do you need all that to be?" I said, "Dude," I don't know if you know this or not, being a mechanic today or a technician, or I call them mechnicians because everybody's got their opinion around that. I said, everything's computerized. Everything's a science. Everything, we look at graphs, we look at all kinds of stuff. It's not changing points and condensers anymore." I said, "So there's a correlation between the science, the math, and in the English, you have to be able to communicate to your customer why they need to fix something, and it's going to cost them $1,000 or $5. It doesn't matter." And I don't see that. Is there something that has anybody from your level down? Have you even seen anything where we can cross those of these kids? Because it seems like we're losing them in middle school. So by the time they get to high school, it's like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to drop out, because we have a high dropout rate too.
I love this example. I think, the way that I am hearing your anecdote here is there's really two different conversations. One is you want to see kids leaving high school, right, able to reach their fullest potential through employment or through college or through trade school, et cetera.
Absolutely.
Right? And so that is what I love about the push towards better standards. In theory, right, like that's good. And one of the things our board is doing, which is really exciting, is relooking at what the graduation requirements are to know. So we should be able to have a really clear opinion as a state as to what children should be leaving our system able to do. Right, so all of that in itself is great, right? The problem is that we also have this overfixation, I think, on the test, right? So
dude, so much so it drives me. I'm a 51-year-old mechanic who's been doing it for 33 years, and that drives me crazy.
Yeah, and so as a teacher, right, and this is what got me into this, sort of the time in the classroom is why I have taken all the professional steps that I've taken and why I'm serving in this board seat. So as a teacher, right, going back to my roots as a middle school English teacher, I really liked having that information that the test was giving me, because it told me if my students were on track, were my 5th graders and 6th graders at the right level. But that wasn't the end-all be-all, right? My classroom was about creating great critical thinkers that loved reading, that could write well. And then, of course, we would have a proxy for that through these tests, right, that would tell us little benchmarks along the way. Are they making progress, right? Whereas the problem is that when educators replace the test as the goal versus the goal being a great education for kids, the test is just one way we know if we're on track, right? And so I think so at the end of the day, I think people should change the energy, in my opinion, away from tests are bad to tests can be helpful if they're in the service of helping kids know how they're doing, and if we have a broader, holistic, comprehensive education for our children, right? So I think that is and when I go visit great schools, this is what's interesting, right? Because you go to the schools that are performing the best. Unfortunately, in our community, they happen to be in certain suburban pockets, right? We should have more great schools.
The more affluent areas.
Yep.
Let's be real.
That's the trend, right? And that is not okay, and that's part of why I do this work, right? But when I go visit those schools, the kids are doing great on the tests. Like, let's be honest, right? They're actually soaring, but the school has a broader mission, right? The school looks at character development and life skills, and also, gives career exploration or field trips, all those sort of things. And then that helps build the students' abilities, and the students also do great on these tests, right? So now, and then I also have visited some examples of schools in our low-income neighborhoods that are doing really well. They're doing the same thing. They have a great culture. They have a big vision for what kids should be able to do. They care about the tests, but they aren't teaching just towards the test. Right, so I would like to have that conversation, and I think those are school by school. So at the end of the day, the boards at the state level, we have to have some way to measure if our schools are doing well, right? Like, I don't think anybody would debate that. I think what we have to do is then translate at each level, so the local boards at the school level, and make sure that we're encouraging great teaching, great leadership, students to have a good holistic experience, and then also using the information of the tests to help, right? Because that is the currency for their future. If a kid wants to go to college, they have to get a certain ACT or SAT score, they have to pass a trade exam, those sort of things, right? But that shouldn't be the end-all be-all. At the end of the day, I didn't teach just for a test score. I taught to make sure my students were going to be great people and had great skills, but I liked looking at the scores to make sure that they were on track. So that's kind of my approach to it.
Okay. So let's fast forward a little bit. You had mentioned something about setting up the 2017 legislative session.
Yeah.
With some of the stuff that happened in 2015 and how you guys are implementing the things. So what are some of the things that you're looking at to help the 2017 legislature? So
you said it in jest earlier about actually accountability, but the reality is that the governor did a very nice job as he built the package and then worked with the legislature to ensure that there were accountability measures for all these new investments. So we get to look as a board at, are these English language learning investments for our Zoom schools, which is the sort of the term for the schools with the highest ELL population. Are they working? Is that, are the investments actually leading to better achievement? Additionally, the same thing is we have a new law. So this is a great example, I think, that kind of crosses all of the dimensions. We have a read by 3 bill. We actually, as a state, have said that kids need to be able to read by 3rd grade.
Absolutely, they should.
And that actually in a few years, there'll be an accountability metric or accountability piece with it, where if kids aren't proficient, they don't go on to 4th. That's going to happen in a few years in Nevada, according to the last session. Right, so I think it's by 2020 or something like that. So what we did, so if you think about it, and we granted schools, we made sure that schools had full-day kindergarten, right, and that there's strong literacy instruction, and that over the next couple of years, that's going to be the requirement. So I think that to me is like the bullseye of an example where we're investing more with purpose and then also able to measure if it's going to work. So that's what our board's going to do. We're going to look at all these different things and make sure that we're monitoring for efficacy. The legislators in 2017 are going to ask, they're not going to say these are new programs and new ideas. They're going to be asking, how are the early investments working? Should we do more? Right? And so I think that's one of the things we're going to do. 2 other really specific ones I'll share just from my seat. One is there is a AB, I'm forgetting the number, I think it was 394, is looking at the Clark County School District's organization. So they're actually looking if the district should have a different model, should be broken up into smaller districts, that sort of thing. So that is a conversation that's happening right now.
Personally, I think they need a top-down audit before they can even do that, don't you think?
Yeah, so I'm not in that.
You're not on part of that deal, or?
Oh, I'm just not in that conversation. That is a different body that has had dozens of meetings, and those are really interesting ones to track from what might change for the state. And then, for example, what I'm familiar with is we also are doing an audit of all the professional development that educators have access to in the state. I'm on that task force, and then we have to submit a legislative report on that work. That is from SB 474, and that is an example where I'm really excited because we'll be able to actually look at all budgets, all of the ways we're measuring outcomes, and then tell the legislature our recommendations. Because teachers too often say 2 things. They say, I wish I had more professional development, right, aligned to the things I need to teach, and I wish the professional development I was going to was really good. They say those things, right? And so this is an example of a smart legislative mandate that I get to serve on and help produce something that hopefully will influence the 2017. So.
Oh. Okay, so
some hope maybe, but
wow. Okay, so it sounds like there's some good things starting to happen. So we're going to take a break. I want to thank Mr. Wakefield for coming in. We had a Well, you heard it. We've got some stuff going down in the school districts, and maybe we can get this thing turned around. We'll be back in a few minutes. This is Troy Warren with Veterans in Politics.
Thanks for having me, Troy.
Welcome.
Paul Pata Law is a proud sponsor of Veterans in Politics. Attorney Paul Pata, a former federal prosecutor, is ready to fight for you. If you've been injured in a car accident, call Paul. Been a victim of a medical malpractice at the VA? Call Paul. Suffered a slip and fall? You better call Paul. Paul Pata Law, 702-366-1888. That's 702-366-1888. Or check us out on the web at paulpadda.com. That's paulpata.com. You fought for our country, now let us fight for you at Paul Pata Law.
Hi, my name's Annette Levy. Did you know that we usually elect judges based solely on name recognition? So here goes. My name's Annette Levy. My name's Annette Levy. My name's Annette Levy. Now for those of you who might want to know a little more, I have 29 years legal experience, 15 years arbitrator, 11 years judge pro tem. I'm ethical. I'm experienced. I want to be your district court judge in Department 20. And by the way, my name's Annette Levy.
Paid for by the Committee to Elect Annette Levy. If you'd like to know more, visit her website at electannette.com.
And welcome back. My name is Troy Warren. I'm in for Steve Sanson and Jim Jonas today. They're out doing some other stuff. They're doing the endorsement interviews for the rest of the state offices and local offices this year up for election. Anyways, we now have in studio Mr. Larry Brown, County Commissioner of District C, correct?
Correct.
You also serve with the RTC. You serve on that board. Actually, you serve on several boards. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to let you do a little bio on yourself and exactly what you do, because you wear a lot of hats.
I do. Thank you, and thanks for having me today. Currently, I am the Vice Chairman of the Clark County Commission.
Okay.
And also have the good fortune of chairing the Regional Transportation Commission, Regional Flood Control District, and also sit on the Metro Fiscal Affairs. Those are probably the three biggest regional boards.
The three biggest ones. So I'm gonna go straight to the RTC. Are you guys responsible for the repairs of the roads and different things and lining all that stuff up?
In many cases, yes, and the board is made up of the member agencies, the county and all the cities, and their public works. So if there's a road out there, there's a good chance that it's RTC, city, county. When you go to I-11 and I-15, it's NDOT, but pretty much the RTC would be involved in most of the road projects.
Okay, because my question is this, and I'm definitely going to throw you in the hot seat on this. Is there a way to organize it where not every road is tore up? Because right now, for me to go home from work, Sahara's tore up, Valley View's tore up, Tropicana's tore up, Nellis is tore up, Lamb's tore up, and then because then we hear on the news, we don't want the cars idling because it raises the emission levels, but yet all this construction is going on all at the same time. Does anybody even take a look at organizing that so we can kind of get some kind of a rhythm to it instead of just tearing everything up at once?
Yeah, and it's a great question, and a question we receive on a daily basis. Here's the situation. To answer your question, yes, we need to do a better job in coordinating. Now, we find ourselves today with all this construction for a couple reasons. First and foremost, during the recession, there was a 4-year window that nothing was being done. Literally,
I'll give you that.
Literally nothing. And coming out of the recession in 2013, the RTC, in conjunction with the chamber and our legislature, the governor's office, we came up with the fuel revenue indexing, which when we go to the pump from 14 to 16, we pay a little extra, and that money has allowed us to bond for $800 million, which generated probably to date 140 projects, put 4,300 people to work. So,
which is a good thing.
It is a good thing. But to specifically to your point where nothing was being done, identifying new resources. So not only are we playing catch up from the recession, but we have these new dollars that we're investing in infrastructure. And it's not just the RTC. It's Nev Energy, it's Southwest Gas, it's the flood control district, the water district, the sewer. So we have all these things. And because everybody has gone after at the same time, that coordination that you bring up, critically important. The RTC has now brought together what was formerly the coordination committee from all the utilities and all the member agencies. They have taken on a new role. They need to start working better, looking ahead how to, as you say, get a rhythm. Acknowledging that we have a lot of work to do, but the bottom line is the investment being made now is critically important because road projects, for instance, you start with a design and funding. It takes sometimes 2, 3, 4 years. So there'll be construction, especially now with the Project Neon out there. There'll be construction over the next 3 to 5 years that is going to be very, very heavy. Our role is to educate and make people aware. We just announced yesterday the RTC, we call it the Seeing Orange campaign, which is, it's good in a way because we want people, if there's a real bad area, like a Flamingo or a Trop where we're tearing up parallel roads, that they have the ability to call in, why aren't there workers there? Why don't they work at night? And be able to give them the answers, the scope of the project, the timelines, because it helps mitigate the frustration. It's not going to go away. The frustration, and rightfully so, people do get frustrated. But we are working towards exactly what you're asking is how do we better coordinate and collaborate? Because of the next few years, this investment in infrastructure is going to be critically important.
Absolutely. So I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to get to the RTC, specifically the public transit, and how everything is switching to natural gas. What was the plan behind that, and is the plan to actually, in all the public transportation, to eliminate fossil fuels, if you will?
Another great question. A few years back, when we were primarily gas diesel, the volatility of those prices. Every year the RTC at a public hearing would be bidding on gas prices for the next year, hedging. And some years we did well, some years we did poorly. But this is back in 2007, 2008 that the board decided to move in a direction to, over time, because it's expensive, over time to create that CNG fleet. And we're there. We still have. Certainly the balance is the CNG vehicles, so now all the new ones are coming in. Yes. But ultimately, we would love to get to that point where we're not reliant on the traditional fossil fuels.
Okay, and so it seems to be going well?
It is. And we just are in the second year of replacing our fleet because our fleet was aging. So we're bringing in the American-made new Flyers, very well received thus far from the riders, which is the most important thing, making sure they're not only feeling comfortable on new vehicles, but they think it's the right fit. So we're moving in the right direction as far as the capital investment and getting to the CNG.
Okay, well, that's good. So now I guess we can just move on. We'll move on to the county commission itself. Now, your seat's not up. No, your seat is up for grabs because you're going to be being interviewed tomorrow by Veterans in Politics.
Correct. Yep.
Correct. How do you feel about the direction that this county is actually going in? I mean, I want some opinions from you on what you're seeing that's working and not working. Is there any way you can? I don't even know if I can even phrase that any better.
Well, I think the biggest challenge we had at the county, and to step back, the county, we're a public agency with a $6 billion budget.
Correct. Well, I have a specific reason why I'm asking.
Coming through the recession, when we literally had to lay off hundreds of employees, cut everything back as far as our public services, including Metro, cut salaries across the board. Now we're probably two years solid out of the recession, and although the private sector moves a lot quicker than the public agencies, we are stable right now. And that's our biggest challenge. as far as the transition coming out of the Great Recession to where we are, learning how to do things differently, not being all things to all people, living within our means, because property tax caps have taken away a traditional revenue source. So that's the new county, is taking a look, focusing in on our priorities. What are we supposed to be doing as a local government? And that usually comes down to public safety. Everybody expects it. Our police, our fire, our judiciary. Public infrastructure. Not as sexy, but you turn on that faucet in the morning, you better have water coming out, and you flush the toilet, it better go. Our roads, our parks, our sidewalks, our streetlights, that public infrastructure. And the third piece, and it doesn't get a lot of attention until something goes wrong, is our social services. From Child Haven to our social service, family services, there's a tremendous need out there to take care of our most vulnerable, from our youngest babies right up to our senior citizens that may be shut in. So if we stay focused on the primary functions of local government, we'll do well. And that's come a long way from 90s, early 2000s, when we had more public dollars than we knew what to do with. We were just doing everything for everyone, and we can't do that anymore. We have to start living within our means.
Okay. Well, the reason why I ask that is because, correct me if I'm wrong, the county commission, you guys are kind of responsible for business development too, aren't you? I mean, getting businesses in different areas, the industrial areas, and different things of that nature. And the reason why I bring that up, and because this touches home for me, I'm a native. I'm such a native that I live next door to the house I grew up in. My parents bought their house in 1963. I bought the house next door to them in 2003, and I'm taking care of them. It's up on Sunrise Mountain. When the stuff went down with Dario Herrera and Mary Kincaid Chauncey and all that stuff, Mary Kincaid Chauncey was my county commissioner at that time. And we were finally getting some movement up there as far as nice shopping centers and restaurants and different things of that nature. And then as soon as that went down and Collins took over, it's like we got dropped like the redheaded stepchildren, because I'm not going to lie to you, we're next to Nellis Air Force Base. We're not as affluent as, say, a Summerlin area. Why are it just seems like some areas are just ignored, while others, Summerlin gets everything. And personally, as a taxpayer and a person who's lived there all my life, I get tired of that. Is there any way, or is there a process that like, say, I can go to and get that started to change that? Because all we get are the automotive, I call them automotive whorehouses, storage units, Section 8 housing everywhere. And hear me, I get, we need that. However, nobody's in charge of making sure it stays clean. Is there any way to change those areas? Because mine's not the only area, because there's several areas, and I know your district, is not my district. However, but how does one get something started to change that, so we can get some kind of good businesses? Because truthfully, to go to a nice restaurant, I have to travel probably 5-10 miles.
Yeah. Well, two-prong answer. One is what our role is.
Okay, that's why I'm asking.
And our role is exactly what you're talking about, to make sure that all communities have equity as far as our investment. We talked earlier about our functions. Do we have appropriate police? Do we have appropriate fire? Are our roads there? Do we have open space, trails and parks? That's our role. Our role is to make sure that all communities have the opportunity for those public amenities. In doing so, we then hopefully will be a catalyst to bring private sector investment in. It's very difficult for us to say, we want Company X to go up into your neighborhood, or to Summerlin, or to the Northwest. Our role is to, A, make sure the community is appealing and inviting, and then B, make sure businesses dealing with the county have accessibility, efficiencies, through the permitting process, business licensing. So we create a business-friendly environment in the county, but it's ultimately that private sector that's going to say, hey, you know what? They need a good restaurant out there. I have this chain and I'm going to drop it in. Sometimes people want us to dictate what goes where, and it's very
no,
difficult. I
no,
hear
I'm
what
not
you're saying.
asking that. I just creating the environment around it.
Absolutely, and we need to do a better job. There are some areas in town, and it's usually our older, more established, mature areas that sometimes get left off. When you talk about Summerlin or Southern Highlands or some of the newer developments, all that investment on the front end is appealing to some of these companies that want to relocate to or locate into Clark County. Our job is to certainly respect that and make it comfortable for
Absolutely.
that. But not forget. Let us not forget the established where it all began. But it's a good point, and we need to do all we can to make sure that it's an inviting environment.
Okay. So what are some of the biggest challenges coming up for the county commission? Because I personally I watch the channel. I find myself watching that C-SPAN. I'm a weirdo when it comes to that stuff because I want to know. But what do you see as some big challenges and maybe solutions to those challenges?
Well, I think the biggest challenge right now coming again out of the recession is our ability, our revenue. On the revenue side, we have not even, or we've just barely reached revenue levels that we had back in 07, 08.
Okay.
And yet the demand for public services. So I think the biggest challenge right now is public safety. Our Metropolitan Police Force, which is City of Las Vegas and unincorporated county, they are woefully under where their officer ratio should be. Pre-recession, we were up over 2 officers per 1,000, which was still lower than the national average, but we started seeing more community officers, more visibility. We're down under 1.73. And to hire a new officer, it takes 12 months to 18 months before that officer gets into the academy and onto the streets. We have to identify some sustainable funding to get more police officers on the streets, not only the Strip and downtown, but into the communities. I think that's the number one challenge, to make our people feel safe in their homes, in their playgrounds, in their schools, in their businesses, tourists on the Strip. In the world we live in today, this is such a crazy environment as far as violence and terrorism and everything. Our role at the local level, make sure we're prepared. So public safety, and that includes the fire department. We just have to make sure people feel they live in a safe community.
Okay. Well, we're coming to the end of the show. Point of contact for you, since you're running for office, if they want to contact you, website, phone number, anything that you want to put out there?
Well, right now, we'll have our campaign stuff up and running in a couple weeks, but anybody as far as the county commission questions, challenges, just contact the office, and that's the general number is 455-3500. The website, lbrown@clarkcountynv.gov, lbrown@clarkcountynv.gov. Please, our citizens, especially in the Northwest, have been great. They're our eyes and ears, day in and day out. They keep us informed of what's going in their neighborhoods, their areas, and that's important.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Clark County Commissioner, District C. My name is Troy Warren. This is Veterans in Politics. Have a great week, people.